everybody, and welcome to another very special board gaming video. Today I'm not going to be talking about too many specific games, and it's not going to be like a list or anything like that, but rather it's going to be another one of my little discussion videos here. Today I am going to be talking all about Kickstarter. Kickstarter is an absolutely amazing platform that really has drastically changed gaming. Just in general, it's changed how we look at gaming, how we accept gaming, how we interact with publishers and designers, all of this kind of stuff. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm very, very excited to get into a little bit of a discussion. But before I do, obviously, I want to lead off with, I want to hear what you guys think about it. What do you think about Kickstarter? What do you think about how it's changed gaming? How does it change how you buy games? Have you gotten a lot of games off of Kickstarter? Are you worried about missing out and all that kind of stuff? I'm very curious to hear. I'm going to talk about my opinions on all of that, but I would love to hear what you guys have to think. That said, like I said, I'll be talking a little bit about a few games I've gotten off of Kickstarter. I have gotten a decent number, and I've played a lot more Kickstarted games. But one thing I did want to mention right off the bat is that this is something that is not exclusive to board games, obviously. Pretty much anything and everything has been kickstarted in some way, shape, or form. I'm going to be talking very briefly first about video games as well as tabletop games as well, just because those are two other categories that I really love that have had substantial kickstarting done to them in some way, shape, or form. So first, with the tabletop games, we're not only talking about full-fledged new gaming systems, but we're also talking about resurgence of systems. We're talking about additions to current systems. We're talking about all sorts of stuff. One great example, one that I funded that I'm extremely excited about, is the 7th Sea 2nd Edition. I love 7th Sea. I love it so very much. And it's one of these things where it's like, okay, well, why do you feel the need to kickstart it? Why does anybody feel the need to kickstart it? Doesn't really matter. They did, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Some of the other things too is there are things like I have Dungeon Architect cards, as they're called, which is just a deck of cards that have different rooms and enemies and like essentially just adjectives that allow you to build a dungeon essentially from scratch on the fly. It's a great little tool as a DM. It's awesome. And again, like I feel personally that if I hadn't kickstarted some of these things that I did, then I really would have missed out on them. And it's unfortunate because it's one of those things where it's essentially an impulse buy on something that doesn't exist yet. You're impulse buying something that you are hoping will end up working out. I'll get more into that later. Video games are an even bigger issue because of development time. You've got a ton of development time on these things. One really good example, or three really good examples I should say. First off is Descent. Right? There's a game called Descent that was funded quite a while ago, and I played it when I was in middle school. I played the original game, and now there's this company that's trying to rebuild it, and I'm just like, awesome. Count me in, do it, do it, do it. And the thing is, again, it takes a very long time to develop. Another great example is Yooka-Laylee, which is a game that is in the same stream as Banjo-Kazooie. It's from essentially the same team that made the original Banjo-Kazooie from the N64, and now they're making this new game. You know, we're getting updates on occasion and this kind of thing, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, well, we're just sort of waiting and seeing and all this kind of stuff, just like doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. So the development time is really what kills some video games in terms of excitement and all this kind of stuff. Last but not least, as far as video games, the infamous Shenmue 3, which just had a big press conference. I don't remember exactly where it was, but they had like a big announcement thing for it, which again is extremely exciting, and I kickstarted it, but it's still like a year away, almost 2 years away. And I'm like, what? And, oh, another one, the Bard's Tale. Bard's Tale 4, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like these things are years away. Like, this, I mean, pre-ordering is one thing, but kickstarting video games is a completely separate category. I say as somebody who just mentioned like 4 different things that I have kickstarted because I was so excited about it, and all I could do is I just worry. I'm like, what if they don't release it publicly and all this kind of stuff? This is one of the problems with Kickstarter. But again, I'll get more into that later. Moving on to our main topic, which is the board games. plenty of board games have been funded. Lots of board games are good, some board games are not so good. You know, it just sort of depends. Really good example, one that I got post Kickstarter that I didn't actually fund, is Legacy Gears of Time. Wonderful game, absolutely love it. Another thing, the one thing that I thought was kind of weird was Ultimate Vampire, which is the One Night Ultimate Vampire, the fancy box that's right here. That's my broken token box that I got for funding the Kickstarter at a higher level. There's so many different ones. Tesla versus Edison is another great one that was kickstarted. Evolution, the expansions Flight and now Climate, which was just finished up. Orleans, I mean, the viticulture and Tuscany, I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. I could sit here literally for hours talking about all of the games that ended up on Kickstarter. But at the same time, you know, we have to think, like, seriously, what happened here? Because a lot of these games, you read the Kickstarters and it's talking about like, oh, well, we've pretty much finished the entirety of the game. We just need like the publishing fees or the printing fees or whatever it is, and that's most of where the money's going to go. And I'm just like, well, I mean, I understand it to an extent, but at the same time, I can never help but thinking like, why don't you get like a bank loan? You know, if you've got all this stuff, put up pre-orders just like a regular company, and then, you know, there you go. Because this is one of the issues that Kickstarter has created. There have obviously been some very, very famous examples of successful Kickstarters that subsequently just sort of went and just sort of vanished. And it's really tragic to see that, because, you know, we're putting in our hard-earned money, and the thing is that this is not meant to be something that is a risk. It's meant to be something that you are paying for an item or items or whatever it is, and then you are receiving them. Now, you may be waiting a certain amount of time, but that's sort of the trade-off with Kickstarter. That's the point, is that in exchange for getting in early, so to speak, then that means that you wait a little bit longer, and theoretically you get more stuff. You get better stuff, more whatever it happens to be, which is okay. I mean, it's not a bad thing inherently, but the problem then comes when the companies don't deliver, and it can be very frustrating. Thankfully, I have not had that problem. I've certainly had games that have arrived late. You know, we're talking about like months late, which, you know, I can deal with. Right now, I'm actually waiting for a game, what is it, Nuclear War. So Nuclear War was a great game that I used to play when I was an undergrad, and it has now found new life on Kickstarter, and I was so excited, and it's great. I can't wait for it, but it was supposed to be delivered in December, and I'm just sort of like, okay, can I get it yet? I mean, come on, man. So, you know, just stuff like that, just sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's really unfortunate, and in the end, it can be very frustrating. So it's just weird, because we've seen this very distinct transition from, you know, just going to the game store, finding a game that you like, and then buying it, or, you know, you see the announcements for like Gen Con or I mean, Comic Con doesn't really do the board game things. Gen Con's the only thing that I can think of, unfortunately. I'm a terrible person. But you see all these announcements for these new games, and it's like, oh, awesome, that's so exciting, I can't wait to get it. And then, of course, you still have really big-name publishers like Fantasy Flight and Rio Grande Games and things like that, that really don't need Kickstarter. They never use it because they don't have to. One really good example of a company that's a fairly large company that uses all the time, though, is like a Cryptozoic. You know, they had the Ghostbusters game is the one that I can immediately remember. I know they've got one or two that are actually on Kickstarter right now. Another good example is Queen Games. Queen Games, they had, what was it, Shogun, the big box. They had the Treasure Hunter, which I've got. I got the Shogun big box. See, again, like, I funded all these games. I'm getting all these games because I'm just crazy. But at the same time, I can't help but think, like, when did this happen? What went on with this? And the problem is, I really don't have an answer. All I know is that one day I went to Kickstarter and looked at games. I was like, oh, that's a cool game. And I got it. And then I received the game. I was like, wow, that was so cool. And the thing is, it wasn't cool. I paid all this money to get a game months after I paid for it. It's just, it's a very strange thing that you really don't get used to. And Of course, there are good things about it for both the players and the publishers. As a player, you know, we tend to get better stuff. We tend to get, you know, the Kickstarter bonuses, Kickstarter exclusives, and all this kind of thing. So it's good for us. It's also good for the designers, the developers, and the publishers, because that way they end up being at least slightly less strapped for cash, because it means that they'll be able to you know, go through and do the project without immediately having all the funding that they need. But then obviously when they get it, then it's awesome and it's great. So it's good from those perspectives. Another great example is the Dice Tower. Dice Tower does their yearly seasonal fundraising thing, and they always have great rewards. They always have these great promos. They have the little plastic dice towers, all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. It's great stuff. But at the same time, again, it's like, I mean, okay, so I mean, Dice Tower is a bad example because we know and we understand like what they're doing. They've been doing it for years, so we've come to expect good things from them, and they've always delivered. So that's a bad example. But for certain other companies, it can be, you know, it really is a gamble, unfortunately, especially for like first timers and things of that nature. You know, it's, I wouldn't say it's necessarily dangerous, but at the same time, it can be very worrisome. Because, like, am I actually going to get this? Am I wasting $60 or however much you're spending? So it can be really, really unfortunate in that sense. Another bad thing is, I mentioned the Kickstarter exclusives as a good thing. That's also a bad thing. A great example is Legacy Gears of Time. I got it after the Kickstarter. I didn't realize that it was on Kickstarter, so I couldn't get it. And now I missed out on the cool promo cards and stuff like that. And it's really unfortunate. Promo cards is something that's a different story, but you know, it's something that I potentially miss out on, and I'm like, oh well, that sucks. That would have been cool to have. And then it's like, oh well, you can buy it separately, but I don't want to buy it separately. I don't want to. So in that sense, it's kind of bad for the consumers, because if you miss out, then you miss out, and it kind of sucks. That happens less with video games, thankfully, because typically with the video games, at least once it's released on Kickstarter, typically you'll just get it earlier than everybody else, and with many board games that's also the case, but sometimes the Kickstarter board games, that's all you get is the Kickstarter. And I mean, maybe they'll come out with another printing for like general purchasing and things of that nature, but not all the time, and it's really, really unfortunate in that sense. So you know, you can lose out, you can end up with just a bad game, because obviously you can't try it out before you buy it, which is very, very unfortunate. I mean, all these kinds of things, and it's just interesting because, like I said at the very beginning, it really has changed the way that we interact with the designers, the developers, the publishers, and also just as gamers, where it's like, oh my god, I want it, I need it, and then we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs, and then like maybe we play it and we're like, oh wow, this game kind of sucks, I don't want to play it anymore. But you've been excited about it like this whole time, and it's just, I mean, and those kinds of stories are way too common, and it's really unfortunate where, you know, the game just, it doesn't live up to what you thought it would be. It's not as good as you expected it to be. Maybe they had like a video on it and it just seemed way cooler. Whatever it happens to be, you know, it doesn't matter. And then, of course, you've got games that are essentially perpetual Kickstarters, in the sense that you've got the base game, and then it's like, oh, well, we've got this and this and this and this expansion, and it's all Kickstarted. And if you want it, then you better Kickstart it. A really good example is a game that I love, Evolution. Evolution has, it's got Flight and now Climate, if I'm not mistaken, which were both Kickstarted expansions. And the thing is, I'm sitting there and I'm like, if I don't Kickstart it, am I going to be able to get it? Because I don't know if I want it. I mean, Flight sounds really cool, so I got it, and I did get it as well. But see, this is what I'm talking about. Like my mentality as a gamer is, now I feel like I have to do it, otherwise I'm completely going to miss out. And I don't like feeling that way. It makes me feel really weird. And again, same thing to a lesser extent with video games, but definitely with tabletop games, missing out on that kind of thing. I mean, it's a very strange feeling, and I know if I go into a game store and I see a game, then I'm like, oh, okay, you know, maybe I'll try it out. Try to find somebody who has it, read about it, whatever it happens to be, and then maybe I'll go back later and buy it. But with Kickstarter, you can't talk to people about it. You can't try it out, you can't play it, you can't read reviews on it because it doesn't exist yet. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really weird. And again, it really has changed the entire dynamic of gaming and how it works. But that said, I've rambled on for plenty enough time, and I know I've been rather redundant to you guys. So I do apologize to an extent for that, but this is something I'm really passionate about. And I am a little bit worried about it because I don't want to see it become bigger than it already is. It's already very big, and I'm worried that, you know, if other larger game companies start doing this, then we could end up having, you know, the dreaded pre-order mentality with board games that we already have with video games. Not to mention the video games that we kickstart, which is even worse. Right, but with that, thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and again, please put any and all thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear your guys' take on this. What do you think of Kickstarter? Do you think it's working? Do you think it's not working? Do you think it's good, bad, in between, all of that kind of stuff? Please let me know in the comments below, but with that, thank you so very much for being here, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much again for watching my board game special on Kickstarter. I hope that you enjoyed this, and once again, I really want to hear your guys' opinions about this. But not only about Kickstarter as a platform for games, but as a platform for anything else. We see movies, we see art, we see all sorts of crazy stuff. I want to know what you guys think about Kickstarter in general. Do you think that it's helping us? Do you think that it's hurting us? What do you guys think about it? But either way, as always, I've got several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page so you can see more of my stuff. And if you want to see more of me in the future, click on that big giant subscribe button. With that, thank you so very much again for being here, and I will see you next time.